This machine was so popular in the 1980s that arcade operators often charged 50 cents a game when most pins were still only a quarter. More than 13,000 units were produced, and over 45 years later, it still ranks in the top 150 games of all time on Pinside. This game has around 120 little light bulbs, and it's done more to make me feel like Luke Skywalker than anything else in this world. It's historically important to pinballers because of two never-before-seen innovations. It was the first pin to have an upper playfield, the first pin to include electromagnets that the player can use to control the ball. My name's Ryan, and on this episode of The Skill Shot, we'll take a deep dive into Williams' 1980s classic, Black Knight. We'll cover the history, playfield, artwork, gameplay, and tactics, and then I'll give it a flip score.
One enemy cannot fight the Black Knight again. Will you challenge the Black Knight again?
These two buttons, right here above the flipper buttons, those don't exist on most pinball machines. They exist on this one because in 1980, Williams Electronics filed a patent for a player-controlled electromagnet. They called it Magna-Save. Here's how it works. Underneath the playfield, near each outlane, there's a magnet. Press the button, and the magnet fires. If the ball is in range, the magnet catches it, pulls it back from the brink of a drain, and saves your ball. Kind of like Luke Skywalker pulling his lightsaber out of a snowbank. To qualify Magna-Save, you hit drop targets. And after using it, you hit the drop targets again, and Magna-Save will be ready to use again. So now, on top of nudging the cabinet and timing it with your flippers, you'll have a resource you're managing, a get-out-of-jail card, and you have to spend it wisely. In this game, the Black Knight is your enemy. He's going to hurt your feelings. His best taunt comes when you attempt to use the Magna-Save, but your timing wasn't right, and the ball drains anyway. Every modern pinball machine that has any kind of player-controlled magnet, they're all descended from this one. A patent filed in 1980 by a designer named Steve Ritchie. The voice, that snarling, taunting knight voice you hear in attract mode, that's Steve Ritchie, the designer of the machine, voicing the evil Black Knight. Decades before voice acting in pinball was a budget line item. But Steve didn't stop at one industry first, because this is also the first solid-state pinball machine with a two-level playfield. Two playfields, 4 flippers on one cabinet in 1980, and that was a major advancement in pinball technology. When I play, I like to launch the ball and quickly hold down the right flipper to keep the ball in the upper playfield. It's safe up there, it won't drain. And with a little skill and luck, you can start a multi-ball very quickly. Eventually, gravity will get the best of you and the ball will fall into the lower playfield, but that's okay because that's where you need it to be to build up your bonus. All the shots in this game seem to be in the absolute perfect place, and I love the way the game can flow when you're comboing these shots and ramps. Steve Ritchie designed the entire Black Knight pinball trilogy, which includes this, Black Knight 2000 from 1989, and Black Knight Sword of Rage from 2019. 3 Black Knights in his career. The Knight is literally the same character on the Sword of Rage back box, snarling at you again, voiced by Ritchie again, 40 years later. That's a 3-machine trilogy across his 39 years, made by one man, and nobody else in pinball can say that. Once you get a multi-ball, you can start getting some big points out of this game because triple scoring will be activated. Now you have the multi-ball going, triple scores being activated. You get some big points out of this game by letting the ball roll through this in lane and then hitting this ramp immediately. I just got a random 30,000 points for that. If we do it again, if we do it again, light up this lane, send the ball through, 62,000 points. If you can keep nailing that shot, you'll get a lot of points. In order to activate Magna-Save, you want these little arrows lit. And to do that, you can knock down the bank of 3 targets on the right side or any bank of 3 targets on the left side. And now Magna-Save is lit. What's awesome about Magna-Save is if the ball is moving slow enough, and it's gone. Like any game of pinball you play where the ball is this far in the out lane, it's a goner, right? But if it's moving nice and slow and you hit this magnet, it'll pull it back and you'll feel like Luke Skywalker. You're gonna release it into the in lane and you'll be back in action, continuing your fight with the Black Knight. During multi-ball, you want to keep your eye on the playfield that has the most balls. So if there's 2 balls upstairs, then fight for the 2 balls. And just don't worry about this one down there that drains. If there's 2 balls up here, two balls in the bottom playfield, and 1 ball up here, forget about it up here and keep your eye on where the most balls are. As you hit the drop-down targets, you'll fill up this sword with points. And that's great, but you've also got to get your bonus. And there's 2 ways to get bonuses, and that's when it rolls through this in lane here, you'll get a bonus. You'll also get a bonus when it whips around this turnaround right there. So now we have a 5x bonus. In order to get an extra ball out of this, you have to light up you have to complete all of these arrows. So now this is lit. Now the second one's lit, the third one's lit, and now there's a round of applause, and up here the little extra ball light is lit. So if you can nail this ramp, and it hits that switch, you'll get an extra ball. The best taunt in the game is when you have Magna-Save lit and you activate it, but the magnet misses. The ball drains anyways, and the Black Knight laughs at you. So that's Black Knight. Now let's give it a flip score. 5 categories, 20 points each, 100 total. Let's go. In the category of shots, the 2-level playfield was revolutionary for the 1980s, and it still feels distinct today. And when you're hitting combos, everything flows so smoothly, so it gets a 16 out of 20. For code and depth, you've got 2 playfields, multi-ball, Magna-Save, bonus building, deeper code than nearly everything that was manufactured in the 80s, and so it scores a 15 out of 20. Moving on to theme, Steve Ritchie's voice as the Black Knight is iconic. The trash talking either motivates the player to try harder or sends him to a therapist, and it gets an 18 out of 20. On build, 2-level playfield mechanics still work on most examples after 45 years. The Magna-Save magnets are robust, and they're simple coils that can be rebuilt, and the community has documented every fix that you might come across. The drop targets need occasional attention, and so do the flippers. System 7 board issues are real but well supported. Where this loses points is the service is starting to get difficult as parts are getting harder and harder to find. So I give it a 14 out of 20. For the resale value, a player grade Black Knight will run you between $1,800 to $3,000. The early solid state collector market specifically rewards Ritchie titles, and Black Knight is the origin of Ritchie. A clean Black Knight does not lose value. If anything, it appreciates slowly, and so it gets an 18 out of 20. For a total flip score of 81 out of 100. That's a solid A-. You can buy a 45-year-old pinball machine in 2026 for under $3,000 that invented mechanics still used on many modern pins today. You can buy the pinball machine that invented Magna-Save and dual-level playfields. It's a work of art that can sit in your man cave and be fun for the whole family. Some pinball machines are games. Some are blueprints. This one's both. Be sure and subscribe to the Skill Shot, where next week I'll be reviewing another mystery pin that you won't want to miss.